Mr. Durand, according to your complaint, you became involved with the defendant while she was married and made a series of loans to her. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Several $1,000s, $3,000.
Almost 3,000, yes.
She says that you didn't make any loans. Whatever you gave her were gifts.
Gifts.
How did you meet each other?
Through a friend of mine's wedding. We both were involved in a wedding, and the lady that my buddy was marrying set us up to where we both walked down the aisle together.
And how long did this relationship last that you
About
developed?
About 2.5 years.
It's a long time. You were living with your husband at the time?
Yes, and it was 2 years, ma'am.
Now tell me about these loans that you made to her during that time.
She'd asked for money. She said she wanted to get a job, and she needed money to get clothes and different things, and I gave her the money. At different times, she'd call and say, I need this much. I wrote a check for this amount, and I can't cover it. We put it in the bank on several different occasions. On the receipts, I have all the bank receipts.
Well, just because you gave her money, Mr. Durand, doesn't mean that they were loans. What makes you think that they were loans, sir?
Well, the money I put in her account, I told her that had to be paid back. I gave her money also out of my pocket on different occasions.
I understand the dynamics of this situation from the papers that I have, which is you decided to stay with your husband and you called this relationship off.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was after that that you pursued these alleged loans.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Durand, were they loans?
Yes, at that time, yes, they were.
Which ones were loans, sir?
The ones I have the receipts from my bank account to her bank account on, yes, are loans.
And how much is that?
$2,920. The money that came straight out of my pocket, which is about $1,000, I had just given her 100 here, 100 there. I told her, don't worry about paying back.
Now, Mrs. Blick, $2,920 is what he said he has in bank receipts. Do you remember getting that kind of money from him?
Yes and no, ma'am.
Well, yes.
Okay, yes. But let me elaborate on that. I would pick up things, say groceries or whatever the case may be. I don't recall exactly everything I picked up, and he would say, if he didn't have the cash on hand, he would deposit it into my account.
That's a lot of groceries for $3,000.
No, it wasn't just groceries. It was several different things.
Like what?
Clothing.
For whom?
For himself.
Let me see the bank receipts, please. During this 2-year period, you were living with your husband or you were living with him?
No, I lived with my husband.
So what did groceries have to do with him?
No, if I was somewhere, he would ask me to pick up things for him. I would pick up things for him. If I was at the mall, he would ask me to pick up things. I would pick up things. He borrowed money from me and also deposited money into my account that he owed me.
Did you ever owe her any money?
No, ma'am.
For deposit to the account of Rob Blick.
That's her husband. I wrote
It's
it.
a joint account.
There's 2 receipts there on the same day. I think one's for 50 and one's for 110. One to her account and one to her husband's account. To where I wrote a check, I can't cover it.
Just a second. That's sort of interesting. Didn't your husband ask where this money was coming from if this was a joint account?
Ma'am, it's a joint account, okay, yes. But if he owed me the money, I would give him the money. This account basically
You're not answering my question, Mrs. Blick.
No, he didn't ask because this account basically I take care of. He doesn't.
I'm looking at deposits to your account, $600.
Okay.
$320. Where's odd numbers? $110.
Because this would be money also that he owed me, that he had borrowed from me.
Well, explain that to me, Mrs. Blick. Explain to me how he borrowed money from you.
He would say that he didn't have any money. Could he please borrow some money? And I said yes, and I let him borrow money.
Does that sound familiar, sir?
No, ma'am. I don't see how I could borrow money from her if she wasn't working at the time, trying to get on her feet. How can I borrow money from her?
If you would look at those statements, ma'am, I did work.
I didn't ask you whether you worked or not. It just doesn't, something doesn't smell right when you say that you lent him money.
Well, I did.
How much?
I don't know the total amount that I loaned him, but I never, ever asked him to borrow money.